The next to last speaker of this session is Annelies Verboon, with an N, and who is a neonatal nurse from Rotterdam. Yes. And she will discuss and talk about the implementation and experience of a fine in Rotterdam. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning. My name is Annelies Verboon. Thank you very much for inviting me to this congress. I am a neonatology nurse. For almost 30 years, I've been working at the NICU of the Erasmus Medical Center in Rotterdam. In this presentation, I would like to tell you about my experiences with the Fine 2 course. To begin, I will give you an overview of what I'm about to tell you in this presentation. First, I will tell you about the hospital I work. Then I will give you a look at the past, followed by the introduction of NIDCAP at the NICU in Rotterdam. After that, I will explain a little bit about the outline of the Fine 2 course, what the course meant to me personally, what my experience with Fine 2 was in relation to the parents, and what the Fine 2 course for the NICU itself. In essence, I will show you a look at the present, and I give you my conclusions. An introduction to the place where I work and where the Fine 2 course was given to us. The Sophia Children's Hospital is located in the center of Rotterdam and is part of the Erasmus Medical Center. It's a very big hospital where approximately 10,000 people are working, a huge organization. The neonatal intensive care consists of 4 units, 3 intensive care and 1 high care, for a total of 33 patients. It's the biggest NICU in the Netherlands, and I'm very proud of that. In this department, where 120 nurses work, we take care of 800 neonates each year. Most babies are born in our own hospital, others are born in regions around us. Furthermore, we also receive patients from other NICUs when there's no place for them elsewhere. As soon as the children have a gestational age of 30 weeks, have a weight that is more than 1 kilogram and no longer need invasive ventilation, they are transferred to their birth hospital or to a local hospital close to the parents' home. The past. This is me, 30 years ago, working at the NICU, nursing a baby on my own, with no one to support the child. In those days, this was the common way of working with ill neonates. We nursed the babies in a quick and efficient way, on a fixed time schedule and according to a fixed protocol. It was more important that everything looked bright and shiny rather than to pay attention to the comfort of the child. As you can see in the picture of the baby, we didn't use any extra materials to make the baby feel more comfortable. Family and other visitors were invited to watch through a window at the corridor while the parents were standing next to the incubator. They did not help with nursing the baby, they just watched us do everything. Their role was simply to be a visitor. In 2004, the NIDCAP program was introduced at the NICU in Rotterdam. Lectures were given, professional NIDCAP coaches were supporting us while nursing the babies, and recommendations were written for individual children. Although I understood this theory of this new way of working, it was difficult for me to apply these theories to my way of working. Mainly because we were and still are in intensive care with very ill children. It was hard for me to adjust to a new nursing method. Although there were clinics which helped look at an individual child, it remained difficult to practice this NIDCAP theory to other children. To be honest, I was not very motivated to practice NIDCAP in those days. 10 years later, in 2014, the management gave us the instruction that everyone working at the NICU had to be trained in Fine 1 and 2. So it was mandatory for us to participate in this course. And this idea was not pleasant for me. I was not looking forward to this course because I initially thought this way of working would be a much heavier workload. I had no idea what to expect. My colleagues who had taken the course before me were either optimistic or skeptical. In fact, there were a lot of questions that made me feel very uncertain at that point. And since there are a lot of people working at the NICU in Rotterdam, it took more than a year before it was my turn to start with the course. Well, to my view, the key themes of Fine 2 are knowledge of the fetal, premature and newborn growth and development, observation of babies in different kinds of circumstances, learning how to see strengths and challenges in babies, and writing a lot of reflections. It's important to say that during the course, NIDCAP was and is still seen as the golden standard for Fine 2. Well, how did the Fine 2 course affect me? In the first weeks, I learned how to observe the behavior of ill neonates. In the beginning, it was quite difficult to stand next to the incubator and just watch without doing anything. No talking, just looking, for 2 minutes long. It was remarkable how often you are disturbed by others in such a short while and how long 2 minutes are. But I was able to learn more because I observed patients in a more gentle and patient manner. Therefore, I was able to see the differences in the breathing patterns and all kinds of movements the child makes. For example, I learned how to see how tired a premature baby can become while someone's changing his diaper. I was also aware of the noise at the unit, and I was distracted by this noise while observing the baby. In comparison to this, it was difficult for me trying to make less noise because I couldn't talk to colleagues while observing. But there was a simple solution for that problem. I just closed the curtain around the incubator, so I became less distracted, and this helped. Of course, single care is a more professional solution to this issue, but at that point, the organization in Rotterdam is not ready yet. So finally, I learned in Fine 2 how to handle with more care, not doing things rushed, and that I should act more slowly with more attention to the comfort of the child. I discovered that my behavior affects the comfort of the patient, and that was an eye-opener. With the information from the course books and the literature, I was able to see signs I didn't see before. For example, when does a child say enough? It was amazing to experience how much you can learn every day, even after 30 years of working at the NICU. The parents. My experiences with the Fine 2 course and the parents. Well, I could discuss with the parents the different levels of awareness that the Fine 2 taught me. For the parents, this was a helpful addition. It was nice for them to recognize this and discuss it with me. I noticed that the parents begin to understand their child better if you explain what their child's behavior means. This way they learn what their child needs and how they can help and support. So my role as a nurse has completely changed because of this. At the beginning of my career, I was doing everything on my own, and now I've become a mentor as a supporting role for the parents. Parents are no longer visitors, but they're part of the team that takes care of the baby. What did the course mean for my neonatal intensive care units? Well, at this time, many nurses in Rotterdam have been taught the ways of Fine 2. It was a good experience to discuss all kinds of matters we had during the meetings with the coaches. There were a lot of realizations, such as issues we can work on later. In my daily reports for the patients, it's now easier for me to describe the child's behavior. Because of this, my colleagues will know what kind of signals the child gives, how much a sick baby can handle, and how one can anticipate this. So these reports are a big advantage for the patient. We speak the same language now. This makes it easier to give the child a timeout. One knows when to stop with proceedings, and one can adjust the level of care. It has become a standard procedure at our NICU to nurse in this knit-cap way. The present, well, this is now how we are supporting a parent and their baby. There are a lot of materials that are available for the comfort of the children. What a difference with 30 years ago. So my conclusions to this course are, I've learned to observe the behavior of neonates in a better and different way because of the FIND 2. With the information provided by the course, I can support the baby to self-regulate a lot better because I can recognize stress and discomfort easier. This is a big advantage for the nursing process, and it gives me even more pleasure in working at the NICU. Would I recommend this course to other hospitals and colleagues? Yes, I certainly would. At last, I would like to say this. Let's not forget, the whole nursing process is teamwork in which the child and its parents have a central position. Together, we can do it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And now we look forward to hearing if you have the same experience in Portsmouth and the UK. And I'm happy to introduce Carol Buxton to tell us this. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh. Okay. Right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to join you here today. It's my first visit to Sweden. It's very nice. So I'm actually, my name's Carol, and I'm going to be talking today about the implementation of FIND within our network in the UK. I'm looking at it a slightly different way to Annelies, so hopefully you can put a slightly different perspective on it. Within the UK, we have various networks, which is split into networks. I come from the south coast, about as far as you can get down in the UK, and this is our network, which consists of 15 neonatal units. These are 3 intensive care, and you can see on the slide the ones with the very big dots, and they are what we used to know as level 3 units, so you have them level 3, 2 and 1. We now class them neonatal intensive care units. 11 of those are local neonatal units, and we have 1 special care baby unit. Within our network alone, we had, between 2014 and 15, we had roughly 6,000 admissions to those various hospitals. And as Annelies says, the 3 units deal with their specific sort of the very premature babies from 23 weeks gestation to our very poorly termed babies, and then they would transfer back to their local neonatal units for their growing and when they needed sort of less intensive care support. So that's our network, and I'm going to look at how we implemented FIND within the network, and also then specifically looking at how we implement it in my hospital trust. Okay, so thinking about specifically about the network implementation of, we had the FIND level 1-2 training combined. So it was offered by Inga and Cherry during a trial phase. We were the second area in the UK to be offered this training. And as I say, it was a merged level 1 and 2 training together. The goals of this training were to support implementation of the BIS family-friendly accreditation scheme, known as BFAS, which Inga has talked a little bit about. Our network was a pilot network from Bliss and was getting lots of support. And Fine, as Inga has said, Bliss worked very closely with Fine to support this. To ensure continuity of care across the network, we try and work to be giving the same cares and level of care within the network. And to strengthen leadership goals for developmental care leads within the network. So, benefits and challenges. Well, the benefits, one of the very big ones, was close bonds that we got within the network. The developmental care leads, there 15 of us did the course? I can't remember. Yeah, 15 of us did the course, and we developed an incredibly close bond with us all. And that continues to this day, giving great peer-to-peer support, which is good that we can have a good cohesive network sort of feel. So that's a really important one. Improving practice across the network and also supported BFAS applications. And I think it shows one of our hospitals, Southampton, one of the big dots on the original map, has actually just received BFAS accreditation. So I think that goes to prove that by doing the Fine course and implementing a lot of its standards, has achieved one of our initial aims. The challenges, quite big ones, initially was inadequate preparation. A lot of us didn't quite know what was expected. It was, goodness me, on the first couple of days, it was like, wow, this is a lot more to this than we realised. So I think that was addressed. A lot to take in one stage. And Inga has said, like the Fine level 1 and level 2 are now taught separately. It was a huge amount for us to do. So that was looked at. And it took an awful lot more time than expected. We went on the 2-day training, and Inga and Cherry said, right, we'll have the feedback and we'll have a sort of closing session in about 3 months. Well, I think it was about 9 months it took, and some people actually took over a year to finish. So it was significantly longer than we first thought, which is why Inga realised very, very quickly on that it wasn't going to be good doing it as Fine level 1, 2 merged. So that's why it was split. I'd like now to speak a little bit about Portsmouth's journey through the Fine training. This is my hospital where I work. It's a big new build. We moved from our unit within by Portsmouth in 2007 to this new build. We're very, very close to the sea, as I said, and from our unit we can actually see the Isle of Wight, which is just off the coast. So it's a nice unit to work in. It's a very spacious unit for a UK NICU, but not big enough, as I'm sure you can all appreciate. You move in, you think we've got loads of room. You're there about a year, and you think we need lots more room. And certainly, having looked at the presentation this morning, we need 3 or 4 times the room we've got. But it's still a nice unit to work. The catchment area for Portsmouth. Sorry, let's go back. The catchment area. We have roughly 500,000 people within our catchment area. We have a very, very unusual demographic, but we have extremely deprived area. We also have very, very rich parts of that area. We're obviously a port. We have quite a migration issue, so coming in, lots of people coming and going. So that really does challenge us quite a lot within our units. We was talking this morning, it's quite interesting hearing the comments from Rod about people visiting. We have a real issue within our units of parents visiting, staying. If they stay for a couple of hours, that's fantastic. So, and it's something I think that we do need to address, but it's very interesting hearing other people's comments as well on that. So we also get a lot of single families and a lot of social issues. So that's something that is quite a challenge for us. We are a level 3 unit, as I've put up here. We do have babies, lots of babies born at 23 weeks. 23 weeks, we've recently this year discharged a baby that was born at 22 weeks, and who's doing very, very well. So we do deal with extremely premature babies. It was mentioned this morning about having speciality units. Our level 3 units, Southampton takes all our surgical patients. We don't deal with any surgical patients at all. So they're all medical premature babies. They go for surgery if they need like PDA surgery and then come back to Portsmouth. So A little bit about my journey. I'm originally a nurse, and then I went on and did my midwifery training, and I was a community midwife for 21 years, and then I decided that I would quite like to do something a bit different. Midwives can work in either neonatal units or midwifery, so I thought I'd give neonatal unit a little go, and that was nearly 10 years ago now. How did it all start for me? How did I end up here in Sweden? Well, I attended a developmental care study day that our unit was running and Inga was speaking at just over 2 years ago. And I thought, wow, I've heard the name Inga Warren, but that was about as far as it went, to be fair. Sorry, Inga. But I heard Inga speaking, and I was really like this light bulb moment. It was like, wow, this woman is just amazing, and I got to know a little bit more about it. So, so I'll go and speak to her after the day. And she mentioned this fine training, which I was like, what's all this fine stuff? Sort of what's she talking about? So I said, what is this fine stuff? Can I be a little bit more involved in it? And she said, are you a developmental care lead for your unit? We're doing some training for your developmental care leads, which of course I wasn't. And I thought, oh, well, that's me out the window then. I'm not going to find any more about this. So I asked rather cheekily if I could just go and watch what they were doing in those 2 days. I would go in my own time. I would pay a little bit towards it, but could I just sit in? And I think Inga thought I was slightly mad, but I said, well, yeah, okay, if you really want to, if you want to do it. So I said, just please, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're offering. I turned up at this study day, truly expecting just to sit and listen, and one of the delegates didn't turn up. So Inga said, well, actually, we've got a spare slot. If your manager is willing to pay, then you can join in. And I said, yes, I'm sure she's willing to pay. I hope she's willing to pay. But, yeah, absolutely, not a problem. Yes, can I join in? So I did. And I did the 2-day training, initial training, and then had all the observation skills and things with the level 2 training. Really enjoyed it, but it was a massive learning curve for me because, as Annelies has said, I knew very little. And although I'd had a lot of experience with babies, I had very little experience with neonates, really, in the big scheme of things. So, I really was going through a huge learning curve, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm quite chatty when I'm not nervous standing up here. I can be quite chatty, and I think Inga grasped that a little bit when I was on the course. And our network, so the network I showed you in the first slide, our network developmental care lead for the leads of every single unit had just gone on maternity leave. So we had an open door there. And unbeknown to me, Inga spoke to somebody and said, I think Carol might be quite good at this. And I got asked a few weeks later if I would be a temporary lead for the network. I had no idea what I was taking on. Never chaired a meeting, nothing. And I sort of went, well, it can't be that bad, can it? So yeah, okay, then I'll give it a go to cover maternity leave. Well, it never happens like that, does it? I'm still here 2 years later. Katie, who was the lead, left and went on to a different trust. And so she decided that she didn't wish to have that level of commitment anymore. So I'm still there, doing study days and everything else that comes with it. And I have to say, enjoying the challenge. Not long after this, this was sort of early after we'd started the course, my manager came to me and said, Carol, I was at that time working clinically, 34 hours a week, and I was a little bit fed up because nothing really seemed to be happening, and I thought, what we're going to do? So I've taken a bit of a moan to my manager, and she said, well, what would you say if I offered you a role as family support and infant feeding specialist? And I thought for about half a second and said, well, yes, how fantastic. And so she was giving me a role as off-team, so I could support staff and support parents, but not have to worry about looking after babies at the same time, which was my ideal role. Actually, to be fair, my ideal role would be to be totally off-team, whereas I have to do 12 hours a week clinical, so I'm working on that one to try and say I need 34 hours a week as this role. So it's really positive, and as part of that role, I am responsible for sort of implementing fine training within our unit and trying to ensure that staff are working to the levels that we would like them to work towards. So I'm incredibly lucky. Going on a bit more about implementing fine training within the Portsmouth Trust, the challenges. Financial and time. Financial issue within any NHS trust is huge. Our trust itself is £10 million in deficit, so that's a lot of pounds. So financial issues always are a big thing. Now, I know that it's not a lot of money to do fine level 1 training and 2, but when you've got that big a deficit, you really have to push your case and say why it's good for the babies. And obviously, if we're going to be sending staff on training, it's not just, we have to pay them to do their training, we also have to pay the staff to be in the unit. So we really, really have to make a good case for the training. Staff profile, the numbers, we don't have quite the same numbers. Our unit currently has 27 beds. We are going up to 31 this year. So we're not too far from Rotterdam, but certainly our numbers, we have roughly 90 nursing staff. We have quite a cultural background, so we have lots of Portuguese nurses now, Spanish nurses, nurses from Vietnam and from the UK, and sort of lots of them coming and going. We get people moving down because their husbands are in the forces and then they move away. So our staff profile does change an awful lot. And if people have come from overseas, we don't know exactly what developmental training they've done during their training. So there's that can be potentially quite a challenge. But also they can bring things to us that we can learn from them. Changing attitudes. I think we all appreciate that there'll always be that one person that's like, I've been doing this for years and I'm never going to change. It happens. But there's also people who really, really want to hear the message, and that's great. The keys to success. I've got an incredibly supportive line manager. She's spoken to me and she said she's been very aware for many years about NICAP training, but she thought it was quite selective in the fact that you couldn't send lots and lots of people on it. It's a very in-depth training. There's a commitment. You have to have a big commitment to it. You have to be able to financially and time give up that staff. So she knew that wasn't necessarily something that she could apply across the unit. But when she heard about the fine level 1 training, 1 and 2 training, she thought, this is achievable. I want my staff to offer gold standard care, and we can send staff on this. So I'm really, really lucky that as well as seeing the passion that I had developed, and she thought, yes, I can have a role for that, she's realised that the fine level 1, hopefully that passion can be rolled out amongst the unit. So we're not quite as lucky as having everyone doing fine 2, but we'll get there, hopefully. The majority of staff are willing to listen. They're willing to hear something, so that's great. Compulsory attendance, you mentioned as well that you're about compulsory attendance, and I think that is a success thing. Although when we did the fine level 1, we did ask people who'd like to go on it, and there certainly were some people who said, yes, please, I'd really like to go on that. But we also said, everybody is going to be doing this training. So we're not just picking the people we think need to learn something. It's almost just pick out of a hat. And when would you like to go? Going back to my manager, in December 2015, she said, we want 20 people to go on the fine course. So we had 20 members of staff. We held it in Portsmouth. We invited Inga and Cherry to come down to train us off-site, which is nice. So people had the off-site time. But, 20 of our staff, which is quite a big chunk for the UK. I'm sure you will agree. And I don't know how many of you are aware, in the UK, the RCM have just brought in revalidation for nurses' requirements, which means you have to show your education, what you've been doing over the last 3 years, and have evidence. And that's great, because people are coming to me and saying, I really would like to do this fine course. So it's wonderful, because they know that their revalidation is coming up and they need the hours. So that's good. Just a few quotes, participant feedback from when they did the fine level 2 days. So really that just the teaching, and doing a little bit of practical. So it wasn't the observational skills, it's just those first fine level 1-2 days. Somebody came back and said, importance of incorporating family-centred developmental care into every aspect of my day. And this was a quote from a very, very senior member of staff who has been doing neonates for a long time. And I think it very much mirrors what you said, Annelies, that it's something that is something, actually, this is really important. Again, learning how to change my practice to benefit the baby. I like that one. So, made me realise our daily cares have an impact on a baby's long-term development. And again, I think sometimes we can think it doesn't really have an impact on their long-term, but we know that it does have a massive impact on their long-term development. And because level 1, there's the practical workstations, really found the practical workstations helpful was another thing which I think was worth putting in. We've got this is just the survey that Inga talked about that they were going to be looking at to evaluate the fine level 2. She did send me a copy of it, and I just thought I would ask some of my staff. I actually asked staff who had done the fine level 1 training, and I asked them how they felt things had changed. And I know Inga was thinking of asking staff who hadn't done the training how they felt that it had changed. So this is just a little bit of feedback from my unit. It was only 15 people, so it's very small. But everyone said my ability to influence the infant's well-being had improved. So although they were only doing that observation, they weren't doing the whole observational things, they still felt that their influence had improved just by doing those 2 days of theory. All staff felt it had my ability to assess the infant's condition had improved to varying degrees. So some felt that they'd learnt more, others felt that they could just do a little bit. What we did notice, there was no change in environment and parental presence within the unit. Now, Inga was saying that she's hoping that the change will come. As more people are doing the fine course, the change to the unit will just be an automatic progression. But we probably wouldn't expect this from just a group of people who've done the fine level 1 training. So what's the future within our network and the Portsmouth Trust particularly? 40 more Portsmouth staff are to complete the fine level 1 training in 2016. We've got 20 more staff coming through in June, and then we've got another course set for October. 6 Portsmouth staff are wishing to undertake fine level 2 training, which is great, and we are wanting more people to do that. But as I said before, there is the issue financially and time and everything, so it's not going to happen in such numbers as in Rotterdam at the moment. What we would like to see is increased parental engagement and change in the environment. The more people we get through the fine level 1 and 2, we'd like to see that just will be a knock-on effect. And fine training is actively promoted within our network. And that's great. As I say, we meet regularly as network leads every three months, and we're talking about fine all the time. We implement the fine standards within the network, and myself and another developmental care lead are looking to commence our NIP-CAP training, which will in itself support individualised care. And that's me. So thank you.